and then we're gonna go. This is gonna be a really fun topic today, I think, and we're good. Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Tom Levine. I'm an award-winning author of 9 traditional novels with imprints of Random House and Simon and Schuster. I'm a Bram Stoker Award finalist, and I've also written for the comic book Spawn, which is why Spawn is up here, which is very cool. Best gig I ever had. I see a lot of questions and queries and posts and hashtags about advice for young writers. And that's cool. We need to give young writers. Phrasing is a little bit tricky because you could mean a couple of different things when you say young writer, which is why today's live stream is in quotes, young writer. We could be talking about someone who is actually chronologically young, let's say 12, 13, 14, even up into the 18, or maybe even into your 20s, whatever you want to qualify as young. I think most people, when they think young writer, they're probably thinking in that like 5th to 8th grade range, maybe into high school. But, define it however you want. We're going to go, for today's purposes, we're going to consider a young writer anyone in that sort of range, like 5th grade, like into middle high school, let's say. So before hitting 18, we'll say. But I don't think we should equate young writer with novice writer because those aren't necessarily synonymous. I can tell you from personal experience as a teacher, I have read plenty of work, the beginning of a fantasy novel, let's say, from a 13-year-old that was really pretty good. Maybe not ready to submit to an agent, but clearly they know what they're doing. And I've read other, chapters from fantasy novelists who are just getting started in their 40s or 50s or whatever, and they are just getting their feet wet in this whole writing business thing. So I don't want to equate young with novice. So when I see questions and hashtags, queries related to advice for young writers, I really want to distinguish, are we talking about someone who is chronologically young, or are we talking about somebody who hasn't done a lot of writing yet, a lot of fiction writing yet? Because the concerns and the things that should be worked on and the things that should be focused on are really very different. For example, if you are a chronologically young writer, you have different worries and concerns and time constraints than someone like me. Now, if you're, let's just say, I don't know, 14, 15 years old, you're a young writer, you're in school presumably right now, maybe that's at home or maybe it's in a physical school, whichever. You're presumably at home somewhere, right? Hopefully you don't have a part-time job yet. I hope you don't. But you've got a different schedule than someone who is, say, I don't know, 46 and married and has 2 kids who are home because of the pandemic. Very, very different schedules. Very, very different life needs that need to be addressed. So the advice I'm going to give those 2 people is going to vary. It's going to, wow, I've completely lost very varied. I don't know. The advice I'm going to give those 2 writers will vary depending on their life circumstances. So let's talk about being a chronologically young writer just for a moment. The number one thing, and this is my default when people ask about advice for young writers, my default is to not worry about writing so much. Not if you're, even into high school and college age. Get out, go have adventures, go experience things, read. And right now we're still, it's only March of 2021. We are still in the middle of coronavirus. So I not personally encourage you to get out of the house right now. I want you to stay home and stay well. But generally speaking, when it is safe to do so, I do want you to get out and explore the world. Now, maybe that's on your bike around the neighborhood. Cool. Or maybe that's a flight to, Germany or whatever. I don't know. Whatever's in your means, get out of your space, get out of your writing space. This is my writing space, okay? This is where I do most of my composing these days. It's really good and really healthy for me to get out of this room and go outside, go to a park, go to, somewhere close by where you can be outside. Hopefully you've seen some of my recent posts about that. So regardless of your age, get out. And I say that specifically also to young writers, chronologically young writers, because you have so many years to learn writing and learn craft and worry about publishing and all that stuff. Dude, don't worry about that right now. Please, I beg you, don't even worry about it. That should not be your concern. Your concern should be experiencing as much as the world has to offer, as much as you possibly can. Read nonfiction, watch nonfiction shows, stop watching sitcoms, stop watching stupid YouTube videos, right? and watch stuff that's going to expand your mind and expand your experiences, even if you have to do it from your phone, okay? That's my primary advice for young writers. It also applies to older writers as well. But I think what the advice people are looking for when they say, do you have any advice for young writers, is how do they write and get published? And again, I don't think you necessarily should. The best thing you can do as a young writer or as a novice writer is to write and to read. Those are the two things that absolutely cannot be changed. Because, for example, let's say one of the reasons that you're writing is because you are homebound. Maybe you're even in bed. Maybe you have an illness and you have enough, strength and cognition to tell a story, but you can't get out of bed. Like, you physically can't do it. Okay, that's fine. Then you can't have adventures right now. You can't go to Germany and whatever. That's fine. Use that time, whatever time you have, to really dive deep and use that imagination and tell those stories. I think that's exactly what you should do. But writing and reading, regardless of your circumstance, there's no shortcut for that. Stephen King talks about it, I think either in On Writing or in the introduction to one of his books, I can't remember. But there's just no substitute for reading and writing. Read in the genre you want to write in. That's hard for me to do. I'm still actually struggling with that, frankly, because there's so many other things I want to read and my schedule, blah, blah, blah. But it's critical. It's critical. You have to read the stuff that's in your genre so you know it's been done and you can get a sense of voice and things like that. But frankly, if your question about advice for young writers is looking for some kind of shortcut, I got to tell you, there isn't one. You just have to write. I will say this, if you're new to writing, regardless, again, whether you're young or novice, the probably number one thing that I see missing in most manuscripts from novice writers, from people who are learning how to write, is the lack of conflict. It's a trap I fall into because I really love writing dialogue. I can spend all day writing, quippy dialogue between a couple characters. Great, but does it move the story forward? Does it reveal character? Is there anything else to it? You can have a story. Fantasy comes to mind. There are other genres as well where you can spend, page after page after page talking about stuff that isn't necessarily part of the plot. That's totally cool. I know Tom Clancy does that a lot, right? Where you can just have pages and pages and pages of technical stuff. That's cool. If that's part of the genre you're writing in, that's great. Go for it. But you still have to move the story. You do still have to have a plot. You do still have to have things going wrong. You have to have a main character, or several, whatever, but you have to have somebody who wants something very badly, and your job is to come in and make it hard for them to get it. That's pretty much it. That's a story. If you have those elements, you have a story. And it's surprising how often those things are missing in stories. It's kind of strange. So if you've got that, you're already off to a good start. Other than that, advice for young writers, yeah, play, have fun, experience things, turn off the video games, turn off the videos, or if you're gonna watch something, make it, a nature show or something from the History Channel or I don't know, whatever, something that's going to expand your mind and give you more ideas because you need those ideas. That's a bit of advice for both novice and young writers. Write everything down. You've got a phone, record it with your voice, write it on your notes, do whatever, but for God's sake, whatever you do, write your ideas down. You will forget them. Now, Stephen King says that he is, and this is from many years ago, so maybe he's changed his mind, but he says he does not keep a notebook because the good ideas will stick. The good ideas that you're actually going to follow through with will stick, and you don't have to worry about the ones that you forget about because they probably weren't worth keeping. Okay, not going to argue with, Stephen King. I do disagree, though. I very, very strongly disagree. Had I done that, if I would have taken that tactic, I never would have written Party. Because Party was an assembled novel. This thing was the first novel that I published. It was with Random House Children's Books. That was a pretty sweet deal. And had I not saved all of my ideas on a Word document for, 10, 15 years, I never could have written that book. Okay? So, do what you want, but I strongly recommend you write all those ideas down. You may not keep them. Totally fine. But do write them down. Advice for young, yeah, that's really it. I think getting the basics down. Something else I see, and again, this isn't for young writers, this is just for people in general. If you want to be a writer, if you want to tell stories in that format, then you need to know things like spelling. and some degree of grammar. I am not a grammarian, despite the stuff that I put out sometimes. I am not a grammarian. Some of the stuff that I know is correct, I just know from reading. You know, like, oh, that doesn't sound right. I'm going to change it to this. Yes, that sounds right. I couldn't tell you what the hell I just did. What the hell's a gerund? I don't know. I don't care. But I can tell you if it's not used correctly. Like, that's a bad sentence right there. We can fix that. It's just in the blood at this point, but I can't tell you why. So that's why reading is important, right? Getting your spelling and grammar, punctuation. I cannot tell you how many times I see dialogue punctuated incorrectly. That drives me crazy. Quick lesson, quote, I'm going to the store, comma, quote, said Tom, period. Did you catch that? It's a comma, then the end quote. I'm probably doing this in reverse, but then the end quote, and then the next word is not capitalized unless it's somebody's name. You don't put quotes and then the period, quote, and then the rest of the sentence. Just look it up, okay? It just drives me crazy. Use this time now to learn grammar, to learn spelling, to learn punctuation, to learn layout, how, the structure of sentences and paragraphs and things like that. This isn't going to take forever to do. It really isn't. Spend, a couple days with Grammar Girl online or whatever. You'll figure it out. It'll be fine. But you do need to know it. You do need to know it. Because then after you know it, you can break all those rules. Totally. That's the sum of it. Wow, yeah, I went way longer than I usually do, so I'm going to stop there. But if you are a novice, whether you're 12 or 24, 44, whatever, 84, I don't care, regardless of your age, I do encourage you to continue writing, to get in as many hours and as many words as possible. Party came in at roughly 50,000 words. It's pretty short for a novel, really. And that means, I think if I go back and open my files, I probably wrote 100 or even 150,000 words altogether, which eventually got pared down to about 50. Am I mad about that? No, I don't regret for a second all of those words that I wrote and ended up getting rid of, because they all helped shape the book that got published. So no word is wasted. Even those days when you're struggling. I'm struggling this morning. As a matter of fact, I have a goal for 3,000 words. I think I've written 200 words. I didn't record a damn thing of this. Son of a bitch. That's twice now this has happened. Anyway, long story short, keep writing. That's the important part. Doesn't matter how old you are. Okay, I hope that's helpful. I hope that's encouraging, because I want you to keep writing. We need your stories. We absolutely need your stories. Okay, so take care. Have a great Friday. Have a good, safe weekend, and we'll see you again very soon. All right, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, whatever platform you happen to be on. Do something.